for the longest time now, if you want to stream and also get high FPS, you need a separate PC to encode your stream. But what happens if you don't have the space, the funds, or just don't want to deal with the hassle of dual PC streaming? How good can you get single PC streaming? Hey guys, what's going on? It's Chamber here, and today we're going to be testing the best single PC settings. Now, why am I testing single PC settings? I actually have moved away from a dual PC setup. That's right. I'm no longer having to deal with capture cards, which are definitely a headache and just really annoying with especially higher end monitors that have come out in the past couple of years. Anything above 1080p 240 hertz, really gonna have some weird issues with a capture card. Now, my previous streaming PC, or just secondary PC for encoding, editing, all that stuff, was a 12700K, my previous 12700K I used, with an ARC A380 that I used to encode AV1. But my main PC is a 13900K and 4090, which made me wonder, why am I really just using a separate PC when I really only need one to do everything? There's more reasons on why I'm moving to a one PC setup. I'm not going to get into those in this video, but basically I need one PC. I also want to get back into streaming. Don't know if I'm going to stream on Kick or Twitch, but hey, let's just see how it is. So I took the top games from Kick and Twitch based off viewership and just was like, okay, let's see how these games perform. So the games we tested are CSGO, obviously pretty popular game. This also does transfer over to Valorant. So it's interesting to know. Modern Warfare 2, just the benchmark. Obviously, this was during the time when the FPS sucked because Activision doesn't know how to make a game. So there might be some weird issues with the benchmarks, but these results were repeatable. So yeah. And then Fortnite, we used a replay. Fortnite's a pretty popular game still. And Rainbow Six Siege, just because then we're also getting a Vulcan title in there, and it gets high FPS. So if something gets lower, it's a little easier to tell. I also tested GTA 5, but I didn't realize that there's a 187 FPS cap in this game. So I just kind of threw it out. You're going to run fine. But let's get into some weird quirks real quick of OBS and stuff. So what we tested was just no OBS, X264 using your CPU to encode. Next other thing was NVENC, so using your GPU. Obviously, AMD, Intel have their own encoders, so think of this performance probably being a little bit similar. And then there's another one just using your iGPU on something like an Intel, but my motherboard does not support iGPU, so sad. This video is tested with my 13900K and 4090 fully overclocked. So let's say that you might have a weaker GPU than me or a weaker CPU. This might slightly affect the results. Would recommend doing your own testing. But besides just testing NVENC, I also tested NVENC with hyper-threading off. So disabling the threads, going from 36 threads to 24, seeing, okay, I know it performs better with no OBS, but when running OBS, how does it really perform? I'll put up the X264 settings right here and the NVENC settings I used right here. X264 slow and then the NVENC setting, they both look very similar and very high quality. That was the main point, was still having a high quality stream while having high FPS. But now let's get right into the benchmarks. Here we have Fortnite FPS. So no OBS, obviously you're getting about 600 FPS in the average with very high lows. X264 definitely takes a very hard dip here. The dip is a pretty good percentage with either NVENC or X264 just having OBS open and stuff. But you're losing over 150 FPS with X264 versus NVENC. You're kind of losing about 100 FPS, so you're still getting good performance. And obviously it's 400 plus FPS, you can compete. The one thing I will say though, NVENC boosts the lows, which is something that is very important. Hyperthreading off really is basically the same FPS for this game. So if you want to run hyperthreading off, a little bit lower power, less temps, maybe even get a little bit higher CPU overclock, feel free and go ahead. Next up, we have CSGO. Now, this game does lose about the same FPS. You're actually losing less than 100 FPS with NVENC. NVENC, once again, comes out with a win. Hyperthreading off actually hurts CSGO, which is very interesting. Most of the time, you think of this game as, oh, doesn't want to run on hyperthreading, but I'm very surprised, and it's cool. So, NVENC for sure. The one thing I will say, you have to run this game through window capture. not through game capture, and you have to use full screen borderless. This is why if you compare this FPS to my previous videos in full screen, it's not going to be as high. So definitely want to think about that. You have to run full screen borderless and you have to use a window capture. So it's slightly different, but that could explain a little bit of the FPS drop as well. Here we have Rainbow Six Siege. This is definitely the game where I feel like the results are the closest. This game is very high in FPS. Vulcan is very well optimized, but hyperthreading off, NVENC and NVENC with hyperthreading on basically perform the same right here. They kind of trade blows. I would probably go with hyperthreading on just because it's so similar. X264, you do lose a little bit more FPS. This isn't nothing massive. If you want to do X264, feel free and go ahead. But I'm going to run NVENC. At this point, NVENC has won all of these so far. NVENC is king, still is. Finishing off the benchmarks here with MW2, and NVENC once again comes over with a win. The lows with no OBS are very, very weird. I think that's just something to do with the weird update that they had. This was after the update that did fix partially the FPS, but it's still not perfect. NVENC has the best lows though, like, and especially compared to no FPS, you're getting another, what, 15-ish, 20 FPS through NVENC as well. X264, not the moves, even with the fastest CPU on the market. I think we pretty much summarized it there though. NVENC is king. Now, could there be a couple of instances where maybe you do want to run X264? For sure. Let's say you're running a single player game and you want to turn up those textures and you want to run DLSS, well, RTX. Probably going to use DLSS too, but you're going to have to use RTX. That's really going to hurt your GPU, especially with encoding a stream, and you're going to be getting lower FPS. Maybe then X264 is the correct option. The only other reason I'd really see to use X264 is if you're running an Intel Arc card. These don't have the greatest H.264 encoders, and AMD, while yes, it has improved a good bit, it may not be the best quality for your viewers. So if you're okay with testing out, okay, let's see how H.264 on my AMD card works, then feel free and go ahead and try it. But typically on the newer AMD GPUs, you kind of do want to run maybe X264. But then if you don't have many cores, just go to the GPU. GPU 9 times out of 10 does seem like the best option. So rule of thumb, use your GPU's encoder unless it's trash or you're running a really high GPU load. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you want to get early access to my content, hit the link down below. You can subscribe to me through Discord, get some special access, some awesome perks, early access to videos too. But hope you guys have enjoyed. Hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you want your FPS to be boosted and get the FPS like you saw here. Hit the link down below. Fully optimize your system. See you guys later. Peace.